I'd like to submit our pitch deck for our solution for the Climate Designers Blitz. This is the conceptual Yesterday's Park. It is a climate-focused, university-funded park which doubles as an event space to raise money for relevant climate issues in South Carolina. And this is by Raj, me, Liam, Chris, and Thomas. So, there's a clear problem in 5 Points and Columbia, or there's a couple really. So, the first one that we sort of rattled off was that public parks in Columbia are in a bit of a sorry state. Originally and like conceptually, they're all really nice, but the city does a pretty bad job of upkeep with them, and they don't really make proper use of local plants, things that would help the local wildlife, and a lot of the parks serve as more of an environmental footprint than space because of that. And another problem that we identified is that the 5 Points area in downtown Columbia has a lot of unused buildings. And this has been exacerbated by the pandemic, but even before that, a couple of these buildings were closed down for good. That no one's shown any interest in buying them. They just sit there. And this is downtown. It's supposed to be a place where you go and have fun. And just seeing all these abandoned storefronts really doesn't make for the best experience. And then the third thing that we said is, while it would be nice to solve a lot of climate issues with ideas alone, the unfortunate reality is that money talks, especially in a lot of these instances. A lot of climate initiatives require at least a little bit of funding to get off the ground. So our solution is Yesterday's Park. It is going to be a public space similar to the Horseshoe, which is a park on campus that is gated in. It's U of SC property, but it's really open to the public. Anyone can go there, walk their dog or whatever. And we're going to present this to the university, so it would ideally be owned and operated by the university at 2030 Divine Street, where 2 local businesses have shut down over the last 2 years. Just for reference, that is this right here, these 2. And one of them was called Yesterday's. It was a really popular restaurant, so we figured we'd keep the name as sort of an homage. And we'd like to include a stage in this park that would be used for various events, such as public speakers, concerts, anything you can really do in an open outdoor event space. And then we also included a vendors area to allow local businesses to cater events. And finally, this is just a little added bonus, but COVID unfortunately doesn't look like it's going anywhere, so an outdoor event space will really help with COVID regulations and related activities, as it allows for better airflow, less stale air, and just more fresh air, basically. And so about the park, this is a map of what the park would look like, or a map of what a map of the park would look like, sorry. And so, I mean, really you can see it's a pretty simple thing. I know this looks a little small right here, but the area is bigger than you might expect. And yeah, so there's a few elements here. These are entrances. All the green is going to be green space. This is a stage, obviously it's labeled, and this is where the bulk of the seating / audience would be. And it's a little hard to read right here, but that says vendor cart and that says restrooms. So yeah, and then we have some ideas for what the green space would include. When choosing this list, we really tried to focus on local pollinators, for things like bees, local bird species. We want to make this a really pretty area, a really bustling area, not just in terms of people, but in terms of wildlife as well. And we think that sort of environment could be really easily fostered, and it's just kind of sad that it isn't, especially in the city. And so here's how the solution would work in practice. Monthly concerts would be held at Yesterday's Park in order to raise money for South Carolina's climate issues. And that would be kind of on a per month basis, whatever the money is being raised for. I mean, really, you can't predict the future, what's going to happen. It'd be nice to just send money to one environmental organization, but let's say there's a huge flood one day and they need help draining it or planting new plants because of it. Like that month's money could go to that versus, let's say a species just got really close to extinction in South Carolina. The next month's money could go to conservation efforts for them. So yeah, and when events aren't being held, the park would be just that, a park, almost in the vein of a botanical garden where students and local residents alike could go relax, enjoy nature, and shop around Five Points. Um, like I mentioned, the Horseshoe earlier, it's a university space, but it is publicly open. So I feel like that model is really nice in terms of upkeep. There's not. It's a very pretty area that a lot of people can go to and enjoy, and I think having one of those in Five Points would be really nice to help support local businesses and just make the area prettier as well. And since the university already has a shuttle to Five Points, and not to mention it is also close enough to campus to just walk from campus to our location. And there's also multiple stops for the public transit in the area. Restructuring parking wouldn't be an issue. In fact, there's already a ton of parking that around the area, meters that kind of goes unused, especially during the nights. So, and then here's a link to our Instagram page, and so this Instagram page would announce events, volunteer opportunities, job openings, that kind of stuff. Basically just a one-stop shop for everything Yesterday's Park. And so we have this slide, barriers to entry. Now, we're not naive. We know this is a huge project. Demolition at the highest estimate that I could find is $63,000, and that's just demolition. That's not even building the park, putting the plants in, making it look nice, designing it well with like residents in mind. That said, I feel like the value that a park in downtown Five Points could bring, not only in an ecological sense, but in a mental and physical health sense, and also an aesthetic sense, would far outweigh these costs. And just for some numbers here, at the bottom, tuition at U of SC is $33,000 for out-of-state students, $12,000 for in-state students. Just the tuition of 2 out-of-state students would more than cover the demolition costs, completely with our liberal estimates. I know that's not exactly how tuition works. Things are obviously allocated in there already, but the example I'm trying to make is with the correct allocation of university funds, this in park is entirely possible. So then we have another slide here, barriers to continuation. The main issue would be upkeep of the park, and that's another thing that we tried to solve. Conceptually right now, our idea is that students in need of volunteer hours could come and clean and upkeep the park in order to satisfy various program requirements, and we just rattled 3 off the top of our heads. There's the Capstone Fellows service hours that are required. There's service hours required for the honors program, and then sorority and fraternities have philanthropy and required service hours. So that's 3 organizations on campus right there that I'm sure would be willing to help out, especially with something that close and relatively easy. And then the park could also be ran similar to the Honeycomb Cafe, which is a restaurant on campus, which the hospitality students run as part of their studies. And I think that would be a really interesting method to sort of administrate the park. And then we also had the idea for internships. Internships could be this sort of like prize thing at the park that focus on sustainability and nature conservation at the intersection of whatever the student's area of study is. So say it's a hospitality student that wants to have some admin experience in a sustainable environment. Like, that's awesome. I'm sure those skills are super hireable, and having that on your resume could look great. Say it's like us, like a design student wants to design posters for this park, and it's at the intersection of sustainability and graphic design. Like, that's really cool, and I'm sure students would love to get in on that kind of stuff. So at the bottom, just to summarize, if many of these positions were student-led and driven, upkeep would be something people want to do instead of something that has to get done. And then here we have what continued success looks like. And here is sort of a mock-up for an event poster, or just a poster for the park in general. So ideally, we'd like for yesterday's park to not only become a successful event space for U of SC, but to inspire other schools to undertake similar initiatives in order to create more of these types of parks around the U.S. You know, sort of beautify this college towns that everyone's in, just make the world a greener place. And I think there's no negative to that, really. And these kind of park, botanical garden, event space hybrids are an interesting model because with events, say there's a concert going on there, with no overhead from, say, a private owner, there's no like company behind this, it's just the university trying to recoup their costs of the park. They could really sort of pay for themselves with admittance fees if, say, half went to the park and half went to whatever organization that concert is supposed to help that month. In the short term, though, creating this park would not only be a plus to help climate initiatives in South Carolina, but help create a greener city for Columbia residents. And I think that about does it. Here's our information, and thank you.